Oh, let's see here. That should do. All right, so we're going to continue on. The last video was pertaining to CPS, and this one will rightfully pertain to CPS too. You may be drawing some confusion as to why we're in the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act. I'm using this to show or illustrate to you that without the prior consent of the consumer given directly to a debt collector or the express permission of a court of competent jurisdiction, a debt collector may not communicate with a consumer in connection with the collection of any debt. Okay, the importance of this, okay, is to show you that even in commerce, they need your express written motherfucking consent. And if they don't have it, ladies and gentlemen, they screwed the motherfucking pooch and they're liable for damages. Now, again, I told you that this is going to pertain to the CPS. We just kind of went through authentication process of a document. What it means to authenticate a document is to adopt a record, to perfect title, to become the holder in due course, to be able to argue through title instead of against title, and to put you in a position of having proper standing in a court, okay? To add emphasis to the last video I just did, I want to point out one of my good friends in Maine who's a truck driver, lost his CDL over child support. He was in contact with me. He said, Derek, I just want to share with you some knowledge that I gained on the side of the road with a state trooper who is actually the trainer for the entire division of state troopers in Maine. Maine is not that big of a state. And in doing so, he got pulled over. He couldn't find anybody to carry the load. It's like $30,000 he could gain. And he wasn't going to let it slip away. So he jumped in the truck. He did what any honorable man would do. He fueled up the truck. He was going to go from point A to point B, deliver the goods, receive the check so he could feed his family, which was great. In the process of doing so, he was pulled over by this state trooper, again, who happened to be the lead instructor for all state troopers in the state of Maine. The first thing he did when he got pulled over is the state trooper said, I need your license, registration, proof of insurance, and logbook, along with your CDL, please. The man knew that he didn't have any of these. He had some of these items, such as insurance. He had his logbooks. He had some of the things required of him or requested of him, but he knew that he did not have a valid CDL and that there might be a bit of a problem with that. So immediately he says, well, I'll tell you what, I don't have a CDL, but I do have my assume business name. And if you wish to do business with me, I would like you to produce your assume business certificate as well. And the state trooper, taken back by this man's position, immediately received from this man his assumed business name certificate and went back to his squad car. When he came back, he was a little awestruck that this man had handed him an assumed business certificate. And the man had told the state trooper, I know that you're engaged in commerce, and beings that it may, that you're engaged in commerce as well, I need your assumed business certificate, which you are required by law to have since you're engaged in commerce on the freeways, highways, byways, and passages of the American people. The state trooper did what nobody else would rightfully believe, okay? He came back to the 18-wheeler, and he looked at the man and said, you're absolutely 100% correct. In fact, I'm the instructor for the state of Maine for all state troopers, and we instruct each and every one of them to go get an assumed business name as it's required by law, and most of my students never do go out and get the assumed business name. And he says, and with that said, I do not have one of my own. And because of that, you are free to go, sir. And he asked this gentleman where he gained the acquired knowledge of having the assumed business name. He said, I'd been studying law for quite some time. I was forced to go down this path, and when I realized that I had to have an assumed business name in order to engage in commerce, I went to Minnesota Secretary of State website, and I got and acquired the assumed business name, and that is the certificate you're holding in your hand currently. He said, sir, you're absolutely 100% correct. I'm here to tell you that I do not have mine. I know that I am supposed to have one, and because of that, you are free to go. Have a good day, sir. He didn't write him up for not having a CDL. He didn't pull him out of the truck. He didn't go into any other details about what the man was doing on the highway without a CDL, driving a 70,000-pound truck, obviously that requires a CDL. And he just said, sir, you are free to go. Anyway, that man conveyed that story to me. It was so powerful, carried such a poignant point that this state trooper is, in fact, a licensed instructor for Maine for the entirety of the state patrol, and he admitted knowingly, willingly, and intentionally that he knew that he was to have one. He instructs state troopers to go get theirs, and he himself was not compliant with the law, and as such, the man was free to go about his journey. Now, again, we're going to be talking about CPS. I know what you're thinking. Why are we talking about the Fair Debt Collection Practices Act, Title 15, USC 1692C, or Section 805 in the Fair Trade Commission Code, okay? And what I want to point out to you is consent. They need prior consent. If they need prior consent in commerce, they need prior consent in the private, period, okay? Consumer means the natural person, which of course is the highest status that you can have, legally speaking, for your juristic person, okay? So what does this have to do with CPS? Where did they get their consent to govern over you, take your offspring, come into your house unannounced, without your express written consent prior to it, okay? Let's go into Title 15, 1692D, harassment and abuse. Again, you're probably wondering, what does this have to do with CPS? I just want you to listen to what has to be followed with a consumer transaction. Understand this, that under under 27 CFR 7211, all crimes are commercial, which means everything falls underneath the attempt to collect a debt. All right, under Title 15, 1601 through 1692, which is why I'm so impressed with Title 15, 1601 through 1692, because I have a full comprehension after years of studying how impressive Title 15 is. And remember, these are declarations of Congress, ladies and gentlemen, that are meant to be liberally construed in the favor of the consumer, i.e. the natural person, the original creditor. All right, if we look at the birth of an offspring, you made a deposit as a creditor, as a grantor into a trustee. The trustee was charged with the duty of handling the security for 9 months in the womb. Once the maturity had occurred, the trustee was then in there to give the property back to the grantor, which would be you, the original creditor, the depositor, right? All right. A debt collector may not engage in any conduct, the natural consequence of which is to harass, oppress, or abuse any person in connection with the collection of a debt, period. All right. CPS, ladies and gentlemen, is out there manifesting debt into existence and proclaiming that they have control over you, that they're there to protect your offspring, when in all actuality they are there to manifest block grants and grants from the federal government in their favor under the guise that it's the best interest of the offspring, all right? And they will soon reap what they sow and swing from the fucking gallows if I have anything to do with it, because these people are lying, looting, cheating, stealing, pandering pieces of shit, every last one of them, at least bare none, bar minimum, needs to swing from their testicles, all right? Until they're so uncomfortable that we can let them down, and they will do the walk of shame, hang their head, and no longer fuck with any of their fellow American brothers and sisters, furthermore, people around the world. All right, these people need to be spanked on their ass, flogged. We need to ring a bell behind them as they walk naked down the road, and we scream, "Walk of shame, walk of shame," as they sell their fellow brothers and sisters for worthless fucking paper and fiat, all right? Because that's what they're doing. They're selling their soul for worthless material objects that they can't rightfully take with them, all right? On to the next section here. This is Title 18, which has been enacted into positive law. It is legal evidence of the law, ladies and gentlemen, and codified by the Congress. This is Title 18, U.S. Code, subsection 1028A, aggravated identity theft. Why are we talking about aggravated identity theft? Ladies and gentlemen, CPS is using your private intellectual property and data. They're using your signature. They're using your images. They're using your photographs. They're using your fingerprints. They're using your digital electronic private intellectual property. And they are using it against you so they can unjustly enrich themselves, all while knowing, in most instances, that they're being paid to create havoc and detriment to you, your family, and your offspring, under the guise that it's done in good faith, that they're doing it for the benefit of the offspring, when in all reality they have quotas that they must meet in order to justify their existence within said nonprofit organization. Because again, this has all been promulgated by the federal government, granting them the ability to receive benefits and funds for extortion, theft of property. What property? Your offspring, okay? Under the guise that it's in the best interest of the offspring. And keep in mind, they're doing this under Title 42, which is where the Social Security Administration Act is lodged. It is also the executive branch, and this is where Health and Human Services, Child Protective Services is all rendered and lodged underneath, okay? This shit applies to agents and agency and not fucking you, okay? It's non-positive law, which means it's only prima facie evidence of law, which means they're operating under the color of law and they are harassing, badgering, and intimidating you without your fucking consent, without providing full disclosure as to the nature and the cause of what they are doing, because in all actuality, it is to unjustly enrich themselves and benefit themselves while needlessly shaming you, defaming your character, and encroaching upon your life, liberty, and pursuit of motherfucking happiness. And this shit has to come to an end, all right? One of these days I may run for president. If that ever happens, the fucking gallows will be full. You can bet your sweet ass it will be a national televised fucking event. And these people will atone for their fucking sins. All right? I am not the one that gets to pass judgment against them, but we're going to help them meet their fucking maker, and he can decide what the fuck he wants to do with them, all right? Some of us were not put on this planet to be fucking peaceful. Some of us angels were put on here to fucking make sure that people reap what they fucking sow. All right, Title 28 or Title 18 U.S. Code 1028, aggravated identity theft. This is important because this is what these little heathenish rat bastards are doing. In general, whoever during and in relation to any felony violation enumerated in subsection C knowingly transfers, possesses, or uses without lawful authority a means of identification of another person shall, remember, we the people are not persons, but we do have persons, and those persons are protected by the Fourth Amendment. We have the right to be secure in our persons, houses, papers, and effects. Persons. Every application manifests a new person into existence, and we have permission to either grant or not grant other people to sell, utilize, or transfer that private intellectual property known as our person through an application. Shall, in addition to the punishment provided for such felony, be sentenced to a term of imprisonment of 2 motherfucking years. I think everybody in CPS ought to go ahead and do their 2-year minimum mandatory sentence. All right, what do you think? That's up to you guys. Terrorism, remember, the very definition of terrorism is government abusing and oppressing the people under vietus arms. Okay, that's what terrorism is. Okay, and the government, or the pseudo-government, quasi-government, has allowed these terrorists to manifest into existence. And make no mistake about it, I don't use the word lightly. They are fucking domestic terrorists, okay? They are abusing people for profit and gain, for what that's worth. But I just wanted to point out what the violation is here for aggravated identity theft. How did they get your private intellectual property? Why are they fucking using it? Who did they buy it from? Who are they selling it to? How did they acquire it? Why did they have it? When did they get it? Who, what, where, when, why, and how are your motherfucking best friends? Now sound off like you got a pair. Repeat after me. Who, what, where, when, why, and how? That's the question you want to ask these CPS fucking agents. And you want to do it under the pains and penalties of perjury, and just, you know, maybe hang a piece of dental floss and say, I would really love to hang you by your testicles or your clit and find out where the fuck you got this shit. All right? It rhymes. It'll stick with you. I know I'm a little vulgar, but get the sand out of your vagina, clean the shit out of your fucking ears, and listen to what the fuck I'm telling you, all right? Here we go. SSA 89. Well, why is this important, Derek? Because they're using the Social Security number, because that's how they're getting motherfucking paid. All right? So, if we look at the SSA 89, which has an OMB number, by lucky stars, look at that motherfucker. It's right there. This is a legitimate document from the Social Security Administration. All right? And it says, I authorize the Social Security Administration to verify my name and Social Security number to the company and or the company's agents. Would that pertain to CPS? You fucking ain't right, it does. If applicable, for the purposes I identified, I am the individual to whom the Social Security number was issued, or the parent or legal guardian of a minor, or the legal guardian of a legal incompetent adult. I declare and affirm under the penalty of perjury that the information contained herein is true, correct, not misleading, right? And I acknowledge that if I make any representation that I know is false to obtain information from Social Security records, I could be found guilty of a misdemeanor and fined up to $5,000. Okay? So if they're using the Social Security juristic person account and they have not filled out an SSA 89, ladies and gentlemen, with your express written consent and signed off on, guess what? They're engaged in identity theft. They're utilizing your trust account, ladies and gentlemen, and they're in big fucking trouble for it. And it's a $5,000 fucking fine. It's a $5,000 fee for them to even use your private intellectual property known as the Social Security Administration account for your juristic person. They must comply with this shit. So CPS, guess what? You get hit with an SSA 89. Now, again, the CPS, Child Protective Services, is lodged under Title 42, which is not enacted into positive law. It's non-positive law, so it's prima facie evidence of law, ladies and gentlemen. And they may or may not have the authorization to utilize this Social Security juristic person account to get paid for their thievery and stealing of your offspring. However, if we don't ask, we never motherfucking know, do we? And on this form, we can inform them that we never granted consent to them to use any of that information. And we want to know who, what, when, where, how, and why they obtained that information. Did they buy it? Did they sell it? Did they acquire it by happenstance? Who gave it to them? When did they get it? Why do they have it? What are they using it for? Are they receiving any benefits from the use of it without my express written consent and authorization? I want to know these things. We need to conduct an investigation. SSA 89 is what we're going to use to prompt that investigation. Now, we are moving on to Title 15, U.S. Code, subsection 1681A, definitions, rules of construction. And we're going to zip on down here to Q. All right. Q3, identity theft. The term identity theft means a fraud committed using the identity information of another person, subject to such further determination as the Bureau may prescribe by regulations. Now, again, I know what you're thinking. Why the fuck are we in Title 15, looking at consumer transactions and all this? This is where I've found identity theft being really defined, okay? And this is something you can utilize the verbiage of in order to make your claim for identity theft. Identity theft report, the term identity theft report has the meaning given in the term by rule of the Bureau and means at a minimum a report that alleges an identity theft, that it is a copy of an official valid report filed by a consumer with an appropriate federal, state, or local law enforcement agency, including the United States Postal Inspector Service. Look at that. They bring up the United States Postal Inspector Service. You can file an identity claim, identity theft claim with the United States Postal Inspector Service or such other government agencies deemed appropriate by the Bureau, and the filing of which subject the person filing the report to criminal penalties relating to the filing of false information if, in fact, the information is reported is false. Okay, now we're going to move on because we're talking about identity theft here. Why is this so important? Because you have the right of privacy, and people in the 21st century have lost the sight of the value of privacy. The Fourth Amendment is very clear. It's written in language that is not vague and ambiguous. A fucking third grader, for fuck's sake, can understand this shit. The right of the people to be secure. Look at that. The people to be secure in what? They're motherfucking persons. Holy fuck are we? It's right there in black and white. We're distinguishing the difference between the people and persons, and the person is a juristic person. A new person is created in every application that you use in commerce. That is a new juristic person, ladies and gentlemen. Houses, papers, and effects against unreasonable searches and seizures, which means that if they have this information, this private intellectual superior information, and you did not grant them written consent to have it, where did they get it? How do they have it? Why do they have it? When did they obtain it? Who did they get it from? How much did they pay for it? Who, what, when, where, how, and why are your questions in discovery that need to be asked, okay? And they need to answer, period. They're in big fucking trouble is what I'm trying to point out, because why? The people have a right to be secure in their motherfucking persons. Damn, okay? Against what? Unreasonable searches and seizures, which would constitute what? An invasion of fucking privacy. Shall not be violated. Oh, shall not be violated, which means the word shall means may or may not. It's only if you're intuitive and inquisitive enough to understand that when somebody does this, you take affirmative action. So it's the whole thing about freedom is, are you accountable? Are you accountable? Are you liable, which means we know that they are liable, so can you recognize their ability to lie, right? And if you're accountable and you recognize that they're liable and they're able to lie, then what do we have to do? We must be, so it's accountable, liability, we must be able to respond. We must have the ability to respond, right? So it's responsibility, liability, and accountability. These are all the things that freedom requires, okay? So if I'm accountable or able to account, or I have the ability to account for their liability or their ability to lie, then I have a duty to make a response or create a report. So in this whole game, I have 3 duties. Make an observation, create a record, and fucking report it. How fucking easy does that get, right? Shall not be violated, which means they may or may not violate it. They may or may not get caught. It's all about whether or not you're accountable, liable, and responsible, okay? And no warrant shall issue but upon probable cause, supported by oath or affirmation. This is important. Okay, we need to be able to verify what they're saying. CPS never verifies a motherfucking thing. It's all hearsay. Everything they do is hearsay. Gobbledygook, bullshit, inadmissible in a competent court of jurisdiction, ladies and gentlemen. Throw that shit out, impeach their evidence, fuck them over hardcore, and then hammer them with identity theft through the United States Postal Service, through the FTC. They're engaged in commerce for profit, motherfuckers. Nail their nuts to the fucking wall. In particular, describing the place to be searched and the person or things to be seized, and whether or not they had express written consent to do the shit that they're doing with your private intellectual property in the first motherfucking place. All right, moving on. Identity theft, yet again. Title 26, U.S. Code 7529, notification of suspected identity theft. Okay, this is Title 26. This is the IRC. This is the IRS. 89,000 new agents. Boy, oh boy, I can't wait to put them motherfuckers to work. All right. In general, the Secretary determines that there has been or may have been an unauthorized use of the identity of any individual. The Secretary shall, without jeopardizing an investigation relating to tax administration. Remember, all these heathens, hooligans that are engaged in commerce aren't paying their motherfucking taxes. All right, so now we've got an identity theft where these people under Title 26, 2603, 2602, 2001, 2002, anybody in constructive possession of decedent estate property is liable for the transfer taxes on a carryover basis, and as such, we have a claim on identity theft for tax evasion. These motherfuckers are using your private intellectual property, your juristic person, and they're not paying taxes on it. How do we know that? They never filled out an SS-89 form and paid the $5,000 fee that it takes to get permissible purpose and use to utilize your Social Security account. As soon as practical, notify the individual of such determination, provide instructions on how to file a report with law enforcement regarding the unauthorized use, identify any steps to be taken by the individual to permit the law enforcement to access personal information. See, they're even saying that law enforcement needs your consent, and even in order to even move forward, the individual during the investigation provide information regarding actions the individual may take in order to protect the individual from harm relating to the unauthorized use, right? The identity theft, the invasion of your fucking privacy. offer identity protection measures to the individual, such as the use of an identity protection personnel identification number, which is the IP PIN number that you can now get through online on the IRS website, all right? Why am I pointing all this out to you? Well, because it's important. If you're going to nail CPS to the wall, let's send their motherfucking asses to Guantanamo Bay. Enough's enough. I don't give a fuck if they were authorized by the judiciary or the legislator or anything else. These people are invading your privacy, violating your unalienable right. Not a constitutional right, motherfuckers. You don't have constitutional rights. Get that fucking shit out of your fucking head. You don't have constitutional rights. You have unalienable rights to live peacefully, sensibly, in your own domain, in your own fucking castle, without being unjustly molested by a bunch of heathenous rat bastards that they themselves are guilty of the very fucking acts that they're sitting there trying to accuse you of. Let he who has not sinned cast the first motherfucking stone. Ain't nobody on this planet ain't got no dirt on them, on their good name. That's just how it rolls, all right? Shit rolls downhill and it rolls uphill in their profession. And none of these people are without sin, all right? So don't let them demean you, belittle you, try and speak above you as though there's some fucking overeducated wretch that can lord over you and tell you how shit's going to be. You can tell them to fuck off properly, all right? So then we're going to get into Title 28. This is Title 17, Chapter 2, Part 248, Subpart C, subsection 248.201 of the CFR. And it gets into identity theft, number 8, okay? And number 8 is identifying information. This is where we're going to find out what elements constitutes identity theft, all right? And this is all tying into CPS and any other business, furthermore, for that matter. If anybody's got your private intellectual property without your express written consent, what are we going to do? Give it to me. There's 6 fucking questions we're going to ask. Who, what, where, when, how, and why. What did you pay for it? When did you get it? Who did you get it from? Why did they have it? When did you inquire about it? Did you buy it? Did you sell it? How did you acquire it, right? Who, what, when, where, how, and why? What date, what time, what place, what caused you to take interest in this private intellectual property? Are you making a profit from it? Where are you getting your source of funds? Who else may have this information at this point? We're just gonna drill these motherfuckers until they're on their knees crying and begging for forgiveness. Now remember, the good Lord tells us that we must forgive our fellow brothers and sisters, for they know not what they do. So if you can find it in your heart, and all the animosity that you've built up from them meddling in your private affairs without just cause, rhyme, or reason, invading your fucking privacy and taking your offspring from you, well then I guess you're probably a better man than me. I have a fucking hard time with that, and I have a bone to pick with these fucking motherfuckers. And that's why I do these videos for you guys. Hopefully they help you. Yes, I'm brash. No, I'm not a fucking rabbi. I didn't go to Jerusalem to study the Bible. All this shit was shown to me and written on my heart a long time ago. But I was in denial. I wanted to defy him. I didn't want to accept what he was there to show me. And I wanted to do things the hard way, like I always do, like a fucking knucklehead. And eventually I got beat down into submission, where I had no choice but 16 days in prison to read the fucking Bible, because he stripped me of all my legal effects, denying me due process of law. But it was by his hand and his grace alone to show me something greater than myself. All right. So number 8, this is Title 17, CFR, Chapter 2, Part 248, Subpart C, subsection 248.201, identity information. Identifying information means any name or number that may be used alone or in conjunction with any other information. That's right. It could just be the Social Security number by itself. It could be your name by itself. It could be a number of things that identify your persons, your entity, or even you as a man. To identify a specific person, including any name, Social Security number, right? Here we are. Follow me. Stay with me. Any name. Okay, any name that you've been known to use, or any bifurcated name that you use, or any conjunction with that name that you use as a form of identification, a nickname, aka, whatever the fuck it may be, Social Security number. They are not engaging in these administrative courts without having this right here. Why? Because they don't get fucking paid without it. Date of birth. Who knew that your date of birth in conjunction with your name constitutes identity theft? Now, when you can conjoin the name, the social security number, and the date of birth, they've effectively stolen your person without your express written motherfucking consent. That's identity theft. Okay, these are elements of identity theft. Official state or government issued driver's license, son of a bitch. If the DMV sold your private intellectual property to other agencies and they are now utilizing that, causing you harm, damage, and loss, and they cannot prove that they have express written consent to use that information, guess what? They're engaged in identity theft. That's any officer on the side of the road compelling you to give them your credit card. And I'm going to tell you right now that a driver's license is in fact a credit card. I can fucking prove that. But just know that it's true. If you don't believe me, read Title 15, 1601 through 1692, where it clearly articulates that any fucking card is a credit card, especially when it's tied to this right here, okay? And the birth date and the certificate number on the birth certificate and the fucking name makes it a credit card, all right? So when an officer on the side of the road demands you give him a credit card, you might say, fuck you thieving, lying, looting, painter, piece of shit trying to fleece the estate. Or identification card number. Just the number alone on an identification card is directly tied to a social security number. And the social security card is, again, a credit card, a line of credit to an account. Alien registration number, government passport number, employee or tax payer identification number. Ladies and gentlemen, all of this constitutes identity theft. All right, any of this information right here just mentioned to you, used by somebody that you haven't given express written consent to use, including CPS, is engaged openly in identity theft. And how do we prove it? Well, we make them fill out the SSA 89. And we ask them to prove up their express written consent from us, we the people, to utilize our persons. Because remember, the Fourth Amendment says we have the right to be secure. We the people have the right to be secure in our fucking persons, right? And we can ram that down their throat all fucking day long because it's legal evidence of law that must be observed by every court from the highest to the motherfucking lowest. Unique biometric data. No shit. You mean my vocals, my retina, my butthole print, your labia, all of that shit is biometrics, okay? And it's all private property that they need express written consent to have images of or utilize in their database that they're selling for private profit and gains. That constitutes identity theft. Your retina, your not your visage, but your vein patterns, your hair follicles, your sweat off your fucking testicles, for fuck's sake, people, is biometric data, such as fingerprints, voice print, retina, or iris images, or other unique physical representations. DNA, everything, ladies and gentlemen, qualifies as identity theft. If it came from your butthole, a fecal matter constitutes as biometric data. Yeah. Unique electronic identification number. Son of a bitch. That means anything that's directly tied to this social security number, okay, date of birth or name, and is used electronically, right, constitutes as identity theft. Address. Okay, if you have an address that's tied to your social security juristic person, that constitutes as identity theft if they don't have express written consent to utilize it. So what do? We ask who, what, where, when, how, and why. How'd you get it? Where'd you get it? Who'd you pay for it? How much did you pay for it? When did you use it? How long have you been using it for without my consent? Are you using it to defame me, slander me, ruin the reputation of my person or myself as a man? Right? Who, what, when, where, how, why, and what the fuck are you doing with it? Or routing codes, right? Any routing codes that are associated with your name, social security juristic person, date of birth, all right? Passport, driver's license, identification card, okay? Or telecommunications. And this is where it gets fun. I love telecommunications because anything by way of wire, don't give a fuck if it's a telegram, SOS through fucking, what do they call that when you do the SOS thing? Dun, 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 dun. Morse code. Okay, anything by way of wire is governed by the United States Postal Service, ladies and gentlemen. That means telephonic communications, electronic communications by way of internet, that's interstate trafficking and commerce, okay? If they're doing it by way of internet, if they're soliciting your information, selling your information, whatever they're doing with your private intellectual property without your express written consent, constitutes telecommunication identifying information or access devices as defined in Title 18 USC 1029E. Now, let's just break it down a little bit further. Title 17 CFR Chapter 2 Part 248 Subpart C Subsection 248.201. Again, this applies to CPS. Nail these motherfuckers to the wall and let them fucking scream in agony as they get fucking pounded into the ground where they rightfully fucking belong. All right, I don't want to see anybody lose their life over this. There are things worse than death. We can leave these motherfuckers destitute. Make them do the fucking walk of shame. 9. Identity theft means a fraud committed or attempted using the identity information of another person without authority, express motherfucking written consent. All right? This is why people pay to go to my classes, because this is how I drill it to your fucking head. 2009, Section 16, CFR 603.2. I'm showing you all the places I'm finding this stuff. This isn't conjectural horseshit. This isn't just something I woke up one day and said, and this shall constitute identity theft. No. This is painstaking, hour after hour, night after night, doing a fuck ton of research that 90% of the people out there will not do, and bringing it to you in layman's terms so you can comprehend and understand how much fucking power you have. The term identity theft means a fraud committed or attempted using the identifying information of another person without authority. So not only is it found in Title 15, Title 18, 17 CFR, 16 CFR, the Federal Trade Commission's definitions, it's also found right here. Code of Federal Regulations. The term identifying information means any name or number that may be used alone or in conjunction with any other information to identify a specific person, including any name, social security number, date of birth, official state or government issued driver's license or identification number, alien registration number, government passport number, employer or tax identification number, unique biometric data such as fingerprints, voice print, retina, or iris images, or other unique physical representation. That means a flea swinging from your fucking nutsack constitutes as biometric data, all right? Unique electronic identification number, address, or routing code, or telecommunications identifying information or access device as defined in Title 18 USC 1029E. All right, let's go further. So we go to, hold on, my voice needs just a minute here. All right, so now we're going to move on to Title 18. We are in Title 18 1029. Fraud and related activity in connection with the access devices, all right? Now, access devices, as I stated before, is all governed underneath the United States Postal Service, the Inspector General of the United States Postal Service, as well as the Federal Trade Commission, the FDIC as well. I have it somewhere up here. But anyway, needless to say, Number 6 says, without the authorization of the issuer of the access device, knowing and with the intent to defraud, solicit a person for the purpose of offering an access device or selling information regarding or an application to obtain an access device. Okay, so more on identity theft, which we already covered in the Fourth Amendment. Now, this is the Hobbs Act. Nobody really talks about the Hobbs Act, but the Hobbs Act is very important. It's near and dear to my heart. It was pointed out to me a long time ago. It's under Title 18 USC, subsection 1951. This chapter focuses on the Hobbs Act, which prohibits actual or attempted robbery or extortion. What is CPS doing, ladies and gentlemen? Not only are they engaged in theft of property and robbery, they're also trying to extort you of something. What are they extorting you of? Your life source energy, causing havoc on your reputation, on your good name, causing you to sacrifice what the Heavenly Father has given you, which is the illusion of time, life on this planet, to do stuff constructive and be about His good works. And because of their nefarious activity, they are now lying, looting, pandering, stealing, thieving motherfuckers that are causing you harm, damage, and loss, stealing your property that was gifted to you by the Heavenly Father above with no just cause or merit nor consent for them to use your private intellectual property in the inducement of robbery and extortion of your time and your life source energy. Section 1951 also prescribes conspiracy to commit robbery or extortion. So even if them rat bastards are over there talking about doing this shit to you, it still constitutes a crime. That crime is conspiracy. As you know, if you've ever known anybody that slung weed or anything else, it's far better to get caught in possession with a scale and weed than it is to be found guilty of conspiring to distribute weed or anything like that, because a conspiracy carries a hell of a lot more time in prison versus just getting caught with it flat outright. All right. Without reference to the conspiracy statute in Title 18, subsection 371, which we're going to get to in a minute, although the Hobbs Act was enacted as a statute to combat racketeering and labor management disputes, which is exactly what they're doing, RICO, racketeering, organized crime, the statute is frequently used in connection with cases involving public corruption. Motherfucker, right there in your fucking face. Commercial disputes, which they're engaged in commercial activities, because as I stated to you before, Title 27 CFR 7211, all crimes are commercial. Grand robbery, larceny, grand theft auto, rape, murder, pillaging, fleecing, it's all fucking under Title 27 CFR 7211, all right? Violent criminal and street gangs, well, that's what fucking the government and CPS constitutes as, is violent criminals and street gangs, as well as the IRS, having 89,000 new agents to go rape, rob, pillage, and run amok. Did I mention the Queen of England fucking recently died? Good riddance to that cunt. And corruption directed at the members of labor unions, all right? So this is underneath the Department of Justice, by the way, ladies and gentlemen. So I'm just pointing this shit out because it's important, and the Hobbs Act does constitute and cover identity theft, okay? Last but not least, Title 18 U.S. Code, subsection 371. Remember, as we were going through the Department of Justice, I told you that we would bring you back to Title 18 371. Conspiracy to commit an offense or to defraud the United States. Are they defrauding the United States when they take your offspring, causing you stress, harm, damage, and loss? Yes, they are. Yes, they are, because now you're no longer a productive member to the United States, and they are missing out on valued tax dollars from your United States person, which is your Social Security juristic person, which is a taxpayer. Okay. And now that you have been caused stress, harm, damage, and loss, you're no longer productive anymore because you're spending all your fucking time worried about obtaining your property back. And that's cheating the United States Treasury, isn't it? Because otherwise your juristic person would probably be out there making lots of tax revenue, right? And paying lots of taxes. So they're cheating the United States Treasury, which in fact is cheating you because you're a preferred stockholder member in the United States Inc. And because of that, the United States now has a vested interest in taking on a fight for you. If two or more persons conspire either to commit any offense against the United States, what offense would that be? To hinder your production, your Social Security juristic person's production. Because why? You can no longer manage your estate because you're worried about your actual property that the Heavenly Father bestowed you about. So now your juristic person is lacking in production, which is cheating the United States Treasury of its taxes, all right? Or to defraud the United States or any agency thereof in any manner or for any purpose, and one or more of such persons do any act to affect the object of the conspiracy, each shall be fined under this title or in prison not more than 5 years or both. That means in the administrative courts, where these alleged judges are nothing more than ministerial law clerks advocating on behalf of their private for-profit corporation, okay, as administrative law clerks, working on behalf of Title 42, 666, Bill 666, lodged underneath the executive branch, violating the separation of powers clause, are openly admitting that they're violating Title 18, where they are pretending to be an official of the United States, wearing a black robe, masquerading on the bench as some type of judicial authority, when in all actuality, they're not a judge, they're administrative clerks working on behalf of CPS to fleece you and cause you hardships, all to unjustly enrich themselves under the guise that they are an official employee of the United States government, which they are not. Newsflash. If, however, the offense the commission of which is the object of the conspiracy is a misdemeanor only, the punishment for such conspiracy shall not exceed the maximum punishment provided for such misdemeanor. Ladies and gentlemen, identity theft. I present to you identity theft, the elements of identity theft, and who, what, when, where, why, and how are your best motherfucking friends. Take this information, nail their nuts to the wall. Thank you very much for providing me a platform to provide you such information. And again, I got a class coming up. This class is going to be so fucking badass. If you think this information was detailed and hard-hitting and high impact, wait till you see this motherfucking class. It's going to blow you off your fucking socks, all right? So, with that said, I love you. Share this information with your friends, your family, your constituents, your community fucking leaders, the city board, the city council, the county council, because all of them are engaged in a conspiracy against your unalienable rights while engaged in commerce to unjustly enrich themselves and line their motherfucking pockets, all right? And once you inform them of it, they have no ability to say, well, I just didn't know, all right? So let's affix the liability to their ass and liquidate their fucking bonds for breach of trust, breach of their fiduciary duty, engaged in mixed war against the Constitution and the people of the United States. Let's hammer them for a violation and invasion of our privacy, for which the Fourth Amendment clearly establishes that we have an unalienable right to be secure in our persons, houses, papers, and effect as people, not as persons, as fucking people. Thank you. This has been an emergency broadcast, proudly brought to you by Self-Governance U and the supporting members of the organization. Thank you very much for your time. With lots of love and energy, keep your heads held high, keep your shit wired tight, and your head on a fucking swivel as always. God bless.